What's up, guys? It's Tierlis. I'm back inside the Dollar on Sewers, and I'm bringing you part 2 of this 2-video series looking at the specialization of Subtlety Rogue. This is part 2, so we're looking at the talents, both PvE and PvP. If you missed part 1, part 1 goes over the changed abilities, new abilities, and removed abilities for a Subtlety Rogue, as well as looking at the artifact weapon that is for a Subtlety Rogue. You can see right here the daggers that I am wielding right here. These are the base form of the daggers that you get for a Subtlety Rogue. But in this video we'll be looking at the PvP and PvE talents that will be available to you in World of Warcraft Legion. Now the tree has changed quite a bit. If you noticed in the first video, there was a lot changed in for sub-rogues. In World of Warcraft Legion, they are diversifying rogue specs, so they really focused on shadow damage and kind of the elusiveness and being in stealth, and that is even further emphasized in the talent tree. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. Looking at PvE talents first. First we have Master of Subtlety. Attacks made while stealth, and for 6 seconds after breaking stealth cause an additional 10% damage. So straight 10% damage buff for 6% for 6 seconds after stealth, and afterwards. Let me see if a buff icon actually shows up here. You have Master here, and I'll go ahead and use it, and you can see it should still stay there for 10 seconds. I don't know why it the buff isn't still in the top right hand corner. I'm supposing it may be bugged. But it should be there. Notice if I use Shadow Dance, that also counts. You can see for 6 seconds right there, even afterwards. So technically, when you count the 3 charges of Shadow Dance, you have a 10% increased damage for a total of 9 seconds, which gives you approximately a, gosh, it's like a 15% uptime over 3 minutes. So, it's a good damage boost. You can decide when to use it. It provides more burst, so it's kind of up to you. Let's take a look at the others, and then you can decide for yourself. There's Weapon Mastery. Your abilities have a 6% chance to hit the target twice each time they deal damage. So you got some RNG right there with a 6%. From what I know, most people generally, this is kind of a general rule, people like more control over their character, and being able to consistently rely on 10% damage through the use of your Shadow Dance or through your Stealth, Vanish, etc. Most likely will be more reliable than Weapon Master, though I'm not sure. Weapon Master may be a PvE boost, so that may be something that PvEers look at. The last is Gloomblade, which actually replaces your Backstab. 35 energy, brand new ability, punctures your target with Shadow Infused Blade for 53,000 shadow damage. Now, as you know, Backstab has the basic physical attack damage of 49,000, and then the damage is increased by 30% when you are behind the target. So behind the target, an extra 30% is about 15,000 damage. That gives you about 65,000 damage, physical damage to the target. So that's going to be mitigated by armor. The place where Gloomblade comes into the difference is that it's now shadow damage, so you're no longer dealing with armor. So it may be something that people may want to take instead. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Gloomblade here so that I can show you guys what it does, or what its sound effect is and what it looks like. So we'll go ahead and use it. And here you don't have to worry about facing requirement. You're always going to do the same amount, and then you're always going to do shadow damage. So that is the first tier. In the second tier, we have Night Stalker. While Stealth or Shadow Dance is active, you use 20% faster, and your abilities deal 15% more damage. Once again, that should apply to Shadow Dance. As you can see, I move faster right there just from moving into Shadow Dance. It's just a small upgrade to your speed and your damage overall as a whole. But when you combine it with Master of Subtlety, I mean, that's while in stealth you have 15% more damage, 10% on top of that, and then 10% when you're out of damage. It's a lot of damage buffs just for, you know, working around Shadow Dance. And do not forget, you do have that passive. Let me pull up the name for you just in case we've forgotten it already. Deepening Shadows. Your finishing moves have a 5% chance per combo point to grant an additional charge of Shadow Dance. So you have a 25% chance if you hit a full stack of combo points to continually, keep up those charges of Shadow Dance. And that's really going to be the core kind of utility of a sub-rogue, is going to be dancing in and out of, stealth. Pardon the almost pun there with Shadow Dance. But that's basically how this new spec, or I shouldn't say new, but highly altered spec is going to be working for Rogue. You have Subterfuge, or Subterfuge, I don't even know how to pronounce that. I believe it's Subterfuge. And for the most part, this is exactly, this is somewhat the same as it used to be. Your abilities requiring stealth can still be used for 3 seconds after stealth breaks. It also increases the duration of Shadow Dance by 2 seconds. This is pretty powerful. So when you count in the 3 charges of Shadow Dance, they last now 5 seconds, because each one of these lasts 3 seconds. So they now last 5 seconds, and then you can continue to use it for 3 seconds afterwards. So you have 8 seconds of being able to use, Shadow Strike and your other stealth abilities that deal a lot of damage. Remember, Shadow Strike has amazing sticking power because it has 25-yard range. It really makes dealing with a sub-rogue annoying and difficult. It's going to be really hard to get away from a sub-rogue. Recently, I made a video on another class that was very Windwalker Monks. Both of these classes are going to be very difficult to get away from. Very annoying for casters to deal with. And I'm not quite sure where their counter is going to come in or what their counter is going to be in the form of. Your third ability in the 30 tier is Shadow Focus. Abilities cost 20% less energy, while Stealth or Shadow Dance is active. That is a nerf from what it normally is. It normally was 75% reduction, but it also counts during Shadow Dance as well. I'm not sure if the old one did, but this one now says it in the tooltip, so it does for sure. In the 45 tier, we have Deeper Stratagem. You may have a maximum of 6 combo points. Your finishing moves consume up to 6 combo points, and your finishing moves deal 20% increased damage. So, let's go ahead and take a look at this here. I'm going to go ahead and click on this here. You can see I now have, in the top left-hand corner, I now have 6 shadow points. I now have 6, combo points. They should be called shadow points as a sub-rogue. Everything's about shadow as a sub-rogue. And as you can see, if I hover over something like Eviscerate, it now says how much damage I will deal at 6 points. So basically it's just a different kind of style of how you play. And your finishing moves deal 20% increased damage. That's reflected in what they show in the damage here. 6-point Kidney Shot now lasts for 7 seconds. A 6-point Nightblade now deals 444,000 damage over 18 seconds as opposed to 16 seconds. So this tier, you're going to notice, is kind of like your flavor of, whether you want more points or you want more energy regeneration. So going into that, we have the next new ability, new talent, is going to be Anticipation, which is you may have a maximum of 8 combo points, but finishers will consume a maximum of 5 combo points. This treats a sub-rogue very much like a Ret Paladin, how Ret Paladins operate. Ret Paladins have, their holy charges, complete rip-off of combo points, but they have 5 charges. But none of their abilities can technically use more than 3, except for a brand new one that was added to the game, this expansion, that I think uses all 5. So in this one, you have 5, and now you can get 8. Pay very close attention to the top left. It's going to be very difficult to see where these extra combo points appear, but they do appear. So I'm going to go ahead and build up here my combo points. I'm just going to use Shuriken Toss, because why not? And now that I've hit 5, what's going to happen is little tiny dots will appear above the first, second, and third orbs to the left. It's very tiny. It's much more noticeable on the very small, useful UI that they put in the center of your character at the bottom there, because you can see the 5 big combo points and then the 3 little ones. I see this being extremely popular in PvP because even as a ret paladin, the ability to do to quickly get like 2 Templar verdicts off really quickly was great burst potential, and I can see that here with sub rogues, is you're able to get, you know, 2 full 5-point combos off on a target, and I honestly think this is going to be more of the PvP choice that you choose, whereas deeper stratagem may be something more along the lines for something that PvEers will like to deal with, because something that maybe you know, takes a certain amount of ability or takes a certain amount of time, such as the Nightblade. Instead, they'll be able to use that for 18 seconds and then focus on their other abilities, and they have 2 extra seconds on that. I can see that being more popular for PvEers, whereas Anticipation, I really expect PvPers to take. The last one here is Vigor, which increases your maximum energy by 50 and your energy regeneration by 10%. I really like energy regeneration. If I'm running out of energy, I generally get irritated. I hate downtime, so this may be something that people take. I don't know. It's going to be up to the PvEers to decide, you know, which of these talents on the level 45 tier they want to take. Except I really expect PvPers to take Anticipation just because of its burst potential. Moving to the next tier, we have Soothing Darkness, which I wasn't paying. I was in my log, in my combat log in the last video, I was wondering where the heal was coming from when I was using Shadow Dance. It was coming from Soothing Darkness. So it's a passive where you heal for 3% of your maximum life every 1 second while stealth is active. This kind of helps you mitigate the fact that you no longer have recuperation. Or recuperate, so you no longer have that ability, and this kind of replaces that. Let me see if I can use Shadow Dance and it'll start healing me. Yeah, as you can see in the bottom left hand of my combat log, I'm starting to heal for those 3 seconds that I am in Shadow Dance. I heal for that bit. If I were to switch to Subterfuge, if I pronounce that correctly, where I have extra time, I'll go ahead and use it, and I should get 5 ticks out of it because it lasts longer. So it's kind of a I guess you could say it's a sustainability, and it's going to be competing up against 2 abilities that you already know. First of them being Elusiveness. Feint also reduces all damage you take from non-area of effect attacks by 30% for 5 seconds. So the interesting thing about this is that before it said all damage, and I do not believe it was 30%. Yes, it was 30%. So it's still the same amount. It's still the same amount of time. However, the old version took flat 30% damage. This will take 30% damage, but apparently area of effect attacks will still damage you. So that's something that you're going to have to pay attention to. And with the new kind of sound effect, and I believe the visual, maybe not, but definitely new sound effect of Feint, you should be able to notice this a lot better, and then you'll be able to, you know, if you're facing off against a rogue, you should be able to notice this and maybe use some area of effect attacks. But Elusiveness is no longer as strong as it once was before, but it is by no means a major nerf. Cheat Death works exactly the way it does before. The only difference is it no longer has a 1.5 minute cooldown, it now has a 2-minute cooldown, so take note of that. In the level 75 tier, we have Strike from the Shadows. Shadow Strike also stuns your target for 2 seconds, and players are dazed for 5 seconds. Players are dazed for 5 seconds instead. I can see maybe some PvPers taking this instead, just so that they have kind of like a little bit of the ability of a kidney shot, but then they really do have the ability of a Shadow Strike on top of that. I don't know if that's kind of the thing they want, because the reason why you would use Shadow Strike from stealth is to close the gap without having to use your Shadow Step. But at the same time, there are people who want to get in close range so that they can get that kidney shot off for that combo, for the stun combo. So, you know, this talent is kind of like meeting mid-ground. It gives you the range of the Shadow Strike, but at the same time, you don't get a full stun. You get players dazed for 5 seconds instead. And you don't have that many combo points on it as well. So, I don't know. It may be something that players may want to do, may not. It's up to, the other talents in this tier, which are, first, we have Prey on the Weak, Kidneys Disabled with your, Kidneys Disabled. I read the second line first instead of the first line. Enemies disabled with your blind, kidney shot, cheap shot, or sap take 10% increased damage from all sources. This is essentially exactly the same as it is on live. And then lastly, we have Tangled Shadow. Nightblade now decreases target's movement speed by an additional 20%. So I need to pull up Nightblade here. So Nightblade originally is 50%. We'll just switch off of it here for a second. 50% is pretty potent. I wish in the first video I had noticed that I had this talent activated, because Nightblade at 70% is absolutely potent. 70% reduction in movement speed is crippling. If any of you guys remember how brutal Chains of Ice was when it first came out, it was like 90% reduction in your movement speed. You felt like a slug. 70% is not far off, and there are very few abilities in the game that can get up to 70%. So having that there is pretty potent. It kind of brings in line Nightblade, makes it more reasonable, but taking that talent is going to be potent, but you're going to have to decide over these others and whether or not you want to take that or not. Personally, if I was playing Sub-Rogue, I'd probably be choosing between Tangled Shadow or Strike from the Shadows. One of the two. I personally like one of the two, and I think I think this is one of the most interesting tiers for people to make a choice for as a Subtlety rogue. In the 90 tier, we have Premeditation. Cheap Shot and Shadow Strike generate 1 additional combo point. So it's a little bit different from the old Premeditation. I believe the old Premeditation just went up and gave you 2 combo points on a target. It was like a 20-second cooldown. Now, just passive, all your Cheap Shots and Shadow Strikes generate 1 additional combo point. Just more combo points. Can't complain there. There is Alacrity. Your finishing moves have a 20% chance per combo point to grant 1% haste for 20 seconds, stacking up to 25 times. I don't really see this too much as a PvP talent. I could be totally wrong, but this is something I expect to see more in PvE. The last ability here is Enveloping Shadows. Finishing move that generates 1 combo point every 3 seconds, lasts longer per combo point spent. In a PvE situation, this sounds very much like an upkeep, which I hate. So I honestly would not take this, because that drives me nuts. I'd probably just take Premeditation without question. But I'll go ahead and show this to you. I already have it active. We'll just get some points up, and then we're going to use it right here, right there. And you can see I have like the dark shadows around me. Ah, that darn tarp up there keeps getting away. I had these nice shadows around me, and this shows you that I have Enveloping Shadows on me, and I'm just going to be generating combo points every few seconds for however long it is. So it is an upkeep ability to increase your overall DPS. Another ability that I just really don't see PvPers taking. I honestly see PvPers taking Premeditation, and then the PvEers will likely be fighting out which one is better, Alacrity or Enveloping Shadows. In the 100 tier, first we have Master of Shadows. You immediately gain 30 energy when you enter stealth or activate Shadow Dance. Considering that you have 3 charges of Shadow Dance, this can be pretty potent. And then you have Vanish, and then you have that Sprint Away, which allows you to activate your Vanish. If you've forgotten it, this is an artifact weapon specialty. I just, go into stealth right there. So that's something that you have there for your disposal there. The other 2 abilities are exactly as they are on live. Mark for Death, 1 minute cooldown, instantly generating 5 combo points, and Death from Above works exactly the same, and your Eviscerate is your main ability that will deal extra damage. So, interesting choice there on the 100 tier, but definitely if I'm looking throughout the entire sub-rogue tree for PvE side of things, I'm really looking at the 75 tier for the interesting choices, also the 45 tier for some interesting choices on what players want to use for their playstyle and how they choose their rogue and whether or not you're playing PvP or PvE. So with that, let's go ahead and head into the honor talents. Please note that the first two tiers of the honor talent tree are standard across all classes. The first is the same across every single spec in the game. The second is the same across every single classification in the game. So healer, range DPS, a melee DPS, and healers, healers, range DPS, melee DPS, and tanks. Excuse me. So in that first tier, do know that the way the honor system works now is it's like Call of Duty. You start at level 1, you start working your way all the way up to level 50. At level 50, you will give the option to prestige and start over at level 1. Well, why would you do that? Well, because you have to actually earn these talents along the way. So you get Gladiator's Medallion at level 1, and then you work your way down to Phantom Assassin at like maybe 14 or something. I'm not quite sure of the numbers. And then when you're done with that, you'll next earn at like level 17 Adaptation, and then you'll work your way down again, and then the same thing in the last tier. So if there are a lot of abilities that you really like in the far right hand tier, prestiging may not be your thing. But if there are a lot of abilities that you like in the left-hand tier, I believe they can all be achieved within like the first 10 to 12 levels. So maybe prestiging will be really easy for you. I'm not sure. So let's go ahead and take a look at it. The first ability here is Gladiator's Medallion. When you first enter PvP, you will be given an honorable medallion. And an honorable medallion is basically like the heirloom trinket, so you're going to have a 3-minute cooldown. This basically replaces it down to a 2-minute cooldown trinket. That's basically all it is for it. There is adaptation. All loss of control effects with a duration of 5 seconds or more will activate your honorable medallion spell, but it only causes it to incur a 60-second cooldown. This is my personal favorite in terms of DPS classes in PvP. I know maybe melee and ranged may have a different thought on this, but a 60-second cooldown trinket is actually pretty good, automatically activating. I know a lot of people really would rather have more control over their character, and so I can see a lot of them going Gladiator's Medallion instead of this. Do take note that if you choose to actually activate your 3-minute honorable medallion, you will not get adaptation for another 3 minutes as opposed to the 60-second cooldown. There is Relentless, which will actually replace your honorable medallion, and its duration of incoming crowd control effects are reduced by 25%. I honestly really only see tanks taking this. In the second tier, we have the melee DPS line, which is Hardiness. While above 80% health, you take 20% less damage. You have Reinforced Armor, health increased by 10%, and you have Sparring. Physical melee attacks have a 20% chance to be blunted, dealing 50% reduced damage. So you have your options there. In the third tier, we begin getting into rogue abilities. First is Maneuverability. Sprint suppresses all movement impairing effects for 4 seconds when used. I believe this was close to being baseline, somewhat. It's no longer the case now. Maybe I could be thinking of Dash on Druids, so sorry if I mixed that up, but there is a talent here called Maneuverability for that, if you want that suppression as a rogue, it is here. In this form. So if you are completely snared, maybe by another rogue using Nightblade, 70% reduction in your movement speed, you can use Maneuverability and Sprint to get out of the way. And remember, once Sprint ends, you're able to go into Stealth, which is very helpful as a sub-rogue. There is Silhouette. Shadow Step's cooldown is reduced by 50% when cast on a friendly target. So, in case you haven't noticed, you can Shadow Step to any target, whether it be a friendly or a non-friendly. So having a 50% reduced cooldown on a 30-second cooldown is actually pretty useful. So if you're just trying to get away or reposition yourself in the battle and you decide to use an ally, this can be very useful. And then lastly, we have here Cut to the Chase. If nearby enemies within 10 yards move faster than you at any given time, you match their movement speed and exceed it by 5% for 3 seconds. This is crazy fun, and this is my choice to go into battle with. this is one of the few classes that I've actually taken into BGs. It's kind of difficult sometimes to get into BGs, so I haven't taken all the classes into BGs and specs into BGs, but I did this on an outlaw rogue, and I think a hunter popped his aspect of the Cheetah, which gives them like 90% increased movement speed, something like 90-100% movement speed increase, and he couldn't get away from me. Like, he was just running as fast as he can, and I'm sure he was trying to figure out how in the blazes I was able to run so quick, and I was speeding so quickly across the battlefield to catch him up. And then there was another instance in which I think, I mean, don't quote me on this, but I believe a prop paladin popped his, there's actually a spell that allows them to get on their mount, which has insane movement speed, and I moved absurdly fast. I mean, I was moving so fast I couldn't hit any of my abilities because I was moving so quickly. It's kind of like, you know, you're in the middle of a game and all of a sudden your movement speed is increased way too far, and then you continue to move too fast to the left, too fast to the right, and you can never get in the right spot. It's like the sensitivity is way too high on it. That's almost what it felt like because I was moving so fast. So this ability is a lot of fun. I don't know how popular it will be in PvP, but I personally, if I was a rogue, I would take it just because it's so crazy fun to chase someone down and then they can't get away from you. In the 4th tier here, we have Shadow's Caress. While in stealth, the cooldown recovery on your abilities is increased by 30%. I'm not quite sure if this is applicable to Shadow Dance, but I'm pretty sure it would be, and this pretty much considering how much you're going to spend in stealth and the amount of ways to get back into stealth, I consider this to be extremely useful. Here you have Honor Among Thieves. Critical hits in combat by allies within 15 yards grants you a combo point, but no more than once every 2 seconds. This should look very familiar to you. This was taken away, and now it is back in the form of a talent, so that's pretty nice. Another ability that you guys really want back is Smoke Bomb. 3-minute cooldown, creates a cloud. I did not do the research on what the old Smoke Bomb is, on whether or not it's done, but do know that this one is a 3-minute cooldown, 8-yard radius for 5 seconds. So if you are a rogue that kind of like needs your Smoke Bomb, you still got it. It's in the PvP tier. However, you will have to give up Shadow's Caress and Honor Among Thieves to get it. In the 5th tier, we have Veil of Midnight. You remain enveloped in the shadows for 2 seconds after coming out of stealth, increasing dodge chance by 100%. Just think for a second about the synergy of the talents that we have discussed so far dealing with Shadow Dance, and then add Veil of the Midnight to it. You have immense potential in this, and it's going to make Subtlety rogues extremely frustrating to deal with in a PvP environment. There is Dagger in the Dark, which is a passive. Every second while stealth is active, nearby enemies within 10 yards take an additional 10% damage from your next Shadow Strike for 5 seconds. Stacks up to 10 times. I apologize that I can't show you this in PvP because PvP is an uncontrolled environment. It takes a while to get into PG, and then it'd be difficult to show off each talent, especially since I would have to, I believe, continually enter different PGs to show off each talent, and it would be rather frustrating to go through it all, considering all the specializations we're going through. Remember, these talents only activate when you're in PvP combat. So this is pretty crazy. Each second while stealth is active, nearby enemies within 10 yards take an additional 10% damage from your next Shadow Strike for 5 seconds. Stacks up to 10 times. So you have a 100% damage increase if you're in stealth long enough near an enemy. So if you're just kind of like stalking them for a little bit, probably what the name of this should be is just stalking. You just stalk them for a little bit because they have to be within 10 yards. And then after, you know, those 10 times have stacked up enough every second, so you have 10 seconds for this to stack all the way up, then you can open up with a Shadow Strike and you will deal a lot of damage. So if you are leaning more towards the, you know, coming out of stealth using Shadow Strike as your main, you know, kind of the way you're going to open, this can be pretty potent. The last ability on this tier is going to be Cold Blood Instant. It's a 45-second cooldown. When activated, your next cheap shot or Shadow Strike will deal 13% of the target's total health in shadow damage. Once again, there's that shadow damage popping up. So you have Gloom Blade in your PvE tree, and now this as well. This can be pretty potent. 45-second cooldown, I think, works pretty well. But over the course of a long battle, it could be, if the battle goes on long enough, it could maybe turn the tide a little bit, but I'm not quite sure. It depends on how things work out, how things shake out for sub-rogues in this new expansion. Right now it's really difficult to test things in PvP because tanks pretty much own everything. You go into a battle with a tank, you die. If you go into a battle with a prot pally, it doesn't matter what you are. It doesn't matter if you're 3 different classes attacking the prot pally at the same time, you're going to lose. Finally, in the 6th tier, we have Phantom Assassin. Passive increases the duration of Shadow Dance by 3 seconds, and you automatically gain Symbols of Death when you enter stealth. Oh my goodness. So in case you've forgotten, Symbols of Death invokes an ancient symbol of power, increasing all damage you deal by 20% for 35 seconds, and causing your next Shadow Strike to critically strike, unaffected by the global cooldown. So that's 35 off. You increase the duration of Shadow Dance by 3 seconds. So Shadow Dance will now be 8 seconds with the talent in here. And then there is the extra 3 seconds after stealth break. I mean, it's just, there's so much synergy. I mean, when you add in Veil of the Midnight, there's so much synergy here that you can do if you correctly play Shadow Dance right, for you to be so potent, so powerful, and so frustrating to deal with as a sub-rogue. It's just unbelievable. Second ability, because this video is moving on a little bit too long. Thief's Bargain. Your damage while stealth is increased by an additional 20%, and the cooldown... Excuse me, I need to read this again. Your damage while stealth is increased by an additional 20%, and the cooldown of your Vanish spell is reduced by 90 seconds. Maximum health reduced by 25%. So you're trading off your health big time for having Vanish reduced by 90 seconds. Vanish will then be on a 30-second cooldown, and you will do 20% increased damage while stealth. I'm not really sure about this one, because this gives you potential to get bursted down pretty quickly. 25% of your health is a lot, so I'm not quite sure about that one, but it's an option open to you. Lastly here, there's Shadowy Duel. You lock your target into a duel contained in the shadows, removing both of you from the eyes of onlookers for 6 seconds. Allows access to stealth-based abilities. This one blows my mind. I'm actually going to have to go into a PvP match to actually see how this one functions. But what I believe is it really will actually stick both you and your target into your own kind of stealth instance. And you will be forced to play that player. I mean, they can run from you. They have 6 seconds to run from you. But it basically singles out someone. So think about it. It's like a 6-second CC on a healer. That's pretty powerful. Man, Shadow Rogues have... I'm going to continue to say that. Subtlety Rogues have extremely powerful abilities available to them. I have not tested the Shadowy Duel. I have not seen it before, and it looks completely broken. I will go ahead and test this in a battleground. I will spend the time to look at it in a battleground just to see how this works, and I will put it in the comment section of this video so you guys can actually see how it looks. But this is pretty crazy. I think still my favorite though is Phantom Assassin, just because there's just so much synergy in what you can do as a Shadow Rogue. And as a Subtlety Rogue, man, I'm never gonna get it right. As a Subtlety Rogue, fusing all of these talents together to really create something really potent. So I sincerely apologize for this video being so long. There's a lot going on with Shadow Rogues, a lot of interaction between different abilities. A lot of people have been complaining about how World of Warcraft Legion is dumbing down the game taking away so many abilities, but they're making up for it by making all of these abilities interact with one another, and I think that is increasing the skill cap a ton. So it's not just like, oh, I have 3 abilities, they all deal flat damage, which one should I use first? They're getting rid of that, and now you're going to have to actually really consider how you, for each situation, especially in PvP, how you chain your abilities together. So I'm pretty excited for it. That's the end of the 2-part series for a Subtlety Rogue, not a Shadow Rogue, a Subtlety Rogue. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Otherwise, I'll see you guys in the next one. Tierlis out.